Have you ever wondered what happens when an entire superpower decides that bigger is always better, and then applies that philosophy to trucks? We are talking about machines so massive they needed helicopter engines just to move, tires imported secretly from Japan because nobody else could make them big enough, and vehicles so classified they could only be tested at night when spy satellites were not overhead. The Soviet Union did not just build military trucks, they built rolling monuments to Cold War paranoia and raw engineering ambition. Today we are counting down the 20 biggest Soviet military trucks you will not believe actually exist. If you enjoy this kind of content, hit that like button and subscribe, because, trust me, this list only gets crazier as we go. Number 20. The GAZ-66 Shishige. So we are starting with a truck that Soviet soldiers either loved or absolutely hated, and sometimes both at the same time. The GAZ-66, nicknamed the Shishige, was a compact 4x4 military truck that rolled off the production line in 1964. And here is the thing. They kept building them for over 30 years, all the way until 1999. Close to 965,000 of these things were made. What made the Shishige special was that this truck could go practically anywhere. The cab-over-engine design gave it an incredibly short wheelbase, meaning it could navigate forest trails, mountain passes, and mud bogs that would swallow other vehicles whole. The V8 gasoline engine produced about 115 horsepower, and while that does not sound impressive, the truck only weighed about 3.5 tons empty. It had a central tire inflation system that let the driver adjust tire pressure on the move for different terrain. The downside? Well, soldiers had a saying that the GAZ-66 was the only truck that could flip over on flat ground. The engine sitting right between the driver and passenger made the cab unbearably hot in summer, and if you hit a mine, the driver's survival odds were not great. Still, you can find Shishiges running in the Russian wilderness to this day, which says something about Soviet engineering. Number 19. The ZIL-157. If the GAZ-66 was the nimble little brother, the ZIL-157 was the reliable older sibling who just kept showing up to work no matter what. Produced from 1958 all the way to 1982, this 6x6 medium truck became one of the most iconic images of the Soviet military during the Cold War. The thing about the ZIL-157 was its signature look. Those massive tires with their distinctive herringbone pattern were so recognizable that soldiers called it the mushroom. Under the hood sat a 6-cylinder gasoline engine producing 90 horsepower, which sounds laughable by today's standards, but it was paired with a 2-speed transfer case that gave it remarkable off-road capability. The ZIL-157 could carry 2.5 tons of cargo through terrain that would make a modern SUV cry. It also featured one of the earliest central tire inflation systems ever fitted to a production military vehicle, a technology the Soviets actually pioneered before most Western armies even considered it. What really made this truck legendary was its simplicity. You could fix it with basic hand tools and a hammer. During the Vietnam War, North Vietnamese forces used these trucks to haul supplies down the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and they proved virtually indestructible in jungle conditions. It was exported to over 40 countries and saw combat on nearly every continent. Number 18. The Ural 375D. Here is a truck famous not for what it was, but for what it carried. The Ural 375D entered service in 1961 as a general-purpose 6x6 military truck, but it became internationally recognized as the standard carrier for one of the most terrifying weapon systems of the Cold War, the BM-21 Grad multiple rocket launcher. Imagine 40 launch tubes loaded with 122mm rockets, all mounted on the back of this truck, capable of unleashing a devastating barrage in just 20 seconds. That is the Ural 375D's claim to fame. The truck itself was powered by a V8 gasoline engine producing 180 horsepower, which gave it decent performance, but absolutely terrible fuel economy. We are talking about 55 liters per 100 kilometers on the road and significantly worse off-road. Soviet logistics officers reportedly cursed this truck's thirst constantly. But what it lacked in fuel efficiency, it made up for in sheer toughness. It had excellent ground clearance, could ford water 1.5 meters deep, and operated reliably from -45 to +50 degrees Celsius. Over 200,000 were built. During the 2005 flooding in New Orleans, Mexican naval infantry driving the diesel successor navigated flooded streets where American trucks could not. Number 17, the ZIL-131. The ZIL-131 might just be the most versatile military truck the Soviet Union ever produced, and the numbers back that up. Over 1 million of these 6x6 workhorses were built between 1966 and 2012, a production run spanning an incredible 50 years. Let that sink in. A truck designed in the 1960s was still rolling off assembly lines in the 21st century. Powered by a 7-liter V8 engine, the ZIL-131 could haul 5 tons on paved roads and 3.5 tons off-road, while also towing trailers weighing up to 4 tons. It served as troop transport, fuel tanker, mobile command post, radar platform, and even reload vehicle for the Scud missile system. The truck's central tire inflation system allowed the driver to adjust pressure on all 6 tires simultaneously while driving, which was revolutionary for its era. And here is a detail that tells you everything about the Soviet approach to military vehicles. The ZIL-131 came equipped with a built-in Geiger counter, because when you are a military truck in the Soviet Union, apparently you need to be prepared for nuclear fallout as part of your standard equipment package. Exported to more than 50 countries, it remains in active military service with over a dozen nations today. Number 16. The KRAZ-214. Before the famous KRAZ-255, there was the truck that started it all for the Kremenchug automobile plant. The KRAZ-214, produced from 1956 to 1967, was the Soviet Union's first dedicated heavy 6x6 off-road truck, and it was an absolute beast for its time. Weighing in at over 12 tons empty, the KRAZ-214 was powered by a massive V12 diesel engine derived from a tank power plant, producing 205 horsepower. This thing was built to haul heavy loads through conditions that would destroy lesser vehicles. The truck was originally developed at the Yaroslavl motor plant before production transferred to the newly established factory in Kremenchug, Ukraine. What made the KRAZ-214 special was its role as the Soviet military's heavy lifter during a critical period of the Cold War. It served as the platform for pontoon bridge systems, heavy cranes, and engineer vehicles essential to Soviet military doctrine of rapid river crossings and offensive operations. It saw service from the frozen steppes of Siberia to the scorching deserts of Central Asia. The KRAZ-214 also earned a reputation for being incredibly difficult to drive. No power steering, a clutch that required a leg like a weightlifter, and brakes that were more of a suggestion than a command. Number 15. The KRAZ-255 Lopatnik. Take everything imposing about the KRAZ-214 and then crank it up to 11. That is the KRAZ-255, nicknamed the Lopatnik, which roughly translates to the one wearing bast shoes, a reference to its enormous tires. Produced starting in 1967, this truck became the backbone of Soviet heavy military engineering units for decades. Nearly 195,000 were built before production ended in 1993. The KRAZ-255 received the legendary YAMZ-238 V8 diesel engine producing 240 horsepower, a significant upgrade from its predecessor. But the real star of the show was those tires, The massive off-road tires gave this truck a visual presence that was simply intimidating. It looked like a bear on wheels, and it performed like one too. With a payload of 7.5 tons and the ability to tow a trailer of equal weight, the CRAZ 255 became the go-to chassis for an incredible range of military equipment. Pontoon bridge layers, mobile cranes, heavy excavators, radar systems, and specialized rocket launcher platforms all rode on this chassis. The truck was exported to dozens of countries across Eastern Europe, Africa, the Middle East, and Latin America. Cuba, Angola, Egypt, Syria, Iraq, they all received these trucks. Some have even ended up in private collections in the United States and England. Number 14, the CRAZ 260. In 1979, the engineers at Kremenchug decided the CRAZ 255 needed a facelift, and the result was the CRAZ 260, a truck that looked different but shared most of its DNA with its predecessor. And that was actually the genius of it. 8 out of 10 parts were interchangeable between the two trucks, which was a logistical officer's dream. The CRAZ 260 received a redesigned cab with better visibility and improved interior comfort, if you can call anything in a Soviet military truck comfortable. The same powerful YAMZ 238 diesel was under the hood, though later versions got the upgraded variant. Payload increased to 9 tons, and the truck received an improved 8-speed gearbox with a 2-stage transfer case that made off-road driving significantly less punishing. The 260 carried the PPS-84 pontoon bridge system, which could be deployed to create river crossings capable of supporting main battle tanks. It also served as the BM-21 Grad launcher chassis in Ukrainian military service, replacing older Ural 375 platforms. Both the CRAZ 255 and the 260 were built side by side until 1994, creating one of the longest concurrent production runs in military vehicle history. The CRAZ 260 saw extensive use during the Soviet-Afghan War, where its off-road capability was tested to the absolute limit in mountain terrain. Number 13, the BAZ-59-37. Now we are getting into the really specialized stuff. The BAZ-59-37 was a Soviet amphibious 6x6 chassis designed and built at the Bryansk automobile plant in the late 1960s, and it had one very specific and very important job: carrying the 9K-33 OSA anti-aircraft missile system known to NATO as the SA-8 Gecko. This was not just a truck with missiles bolted on top. The entire vehicle was designed from the ground up as an integrated weapons platform. The 3-axle chassis featured a rear-mounted engine and a fully enclosed, NBC-protected crew compartment that could be sealed against nuclear, biological, and chemical threats. The vehicle was fully amphibious, meaning it could drive straight into a river and keep moving. It was propelled through water by 2 hydrojets mounted at the rear, reaching speeds of around 8 to 10 kilometers per hour while swimming. About 18 tons loaded with the complete OSA system and powered by a 300 horsepower diesel. What was remarkable about this platform was its integration level. The vehicle, radar, missile launchers, and fire control systems all worked as a single self-contained unit. This meant an OSA battery could relocate, set up, and be ready to fire in minutes, providing mobile air defense for advancing forces. The concept was revolutionary and influenced air defense vehicle design worldwide. Number 12. The ZIL-135. Here is where Soviet truck engineering gets extraordinary. The ZIL-135, designed by the legendary Vitaly Grachev at the ZIL Special Design Bureau starting in 1959, was an 8-wheeled monster with a peculiar secret. It had not one, but 2 engines. That is right. 2 separate V8 gasoline engines, each producing 180 horsepower, one driving the wheels on the left side and the other driving the wheels on the right. Why? Because Grachev wanted redundancy. If one engine died, the truck could still move on the other. The ZIL 135 had a unique wheel arrangement where the middle two axles were spaced close together, while the front and rear axles were set further apart. The front and rear wheels steered, giving this 10-ton truck surprising maneuverability for its size. Over 10,000 were eventually built, primarily at the Bryansk automobile plant. This truck became famous as the launcher for two devastating weapon systems, the 9K-52 Luna M tactical ballistic missile, known to NATO as the Frog 7, and the fearsome BM-27 Uragan multiple rocket launcher. The Uragan could fire 16 220mm rockets in 20 seconds, saturating a massive area with explosive destruction. Keeping two engines synchronized was a constant headache, though. Number 11. The MAZ-543. We have now arrived at the vehicle that changed everything for Soviet heavy transport. The MAZ-543, developed between 1954 and 1959 at the Minsk automobile plant under the brilliant engineer Boris Shaposhnik, was the Soviet Union's first four-axle, 8x8 heavy tractor, and it was a genuine engineering revolution. The design featured innovations unprecedented not just in the USSR, but globally. Independent torsion bar suspension on all wheels, a hydromechanical transmission, a centralized tire inflation system, and 7 separate differential gears in the drive system. The V12 diesel engine produced 375 horsepower and could push this monster to speeds of 35 to 40 kilometers per hour. The MAZ-543 was designed to haul artillery systems weighing up to 10 tons, and its most dramatic role came during the Cold War's tensest moments. The 535A variant towed ballistic missiles through Red Square during military parades, including genuine intercontinental ballistic missile systems. On May 9, 1965, MAZ-535A tractors towed experimental GR-1 missiles weighing 117 tons through Moscow in a deliberate display of Soviet power. Only about 350 units were ever built before the more capable MAZ-537 replaced it. Number 10. The MAZ-537. If the 535 was the revolution, the MAZ-537 was the evolution that actually won the logistics war. First appearing in late 1958 and entering mass production in 1960, this 8x8 heavy tractor became the standard tank transporter of the Soviet armed forces for 3 decades. Over 10,000 were built, and unlike its predecessor, the 537 was exported to numerous countries. The truck received the upgraded D12A engine, a monstrous 38.9-liter V12 diesel, producing 525 horsepower, derived from tank engines that powered the legendary T-34. It could haul semi-trailers loaded with up to 50 tons, later increased to 65 tons, of military hardware. That meant it could carry a fully loaded T-72 main battle tank across country with relative ease. The cab seated 4 crew members, and the truck had a range of over 650 kilometers. The most common variant, the 537G, featured a 15-ton winch that could drag disabled tanks onto its trailer. Production continued at the Kurgan Wheel Tractor Plant until 1989, and the truck remained in frontline service well into the 2000s. Number 9. The KZK T-7428 Rusik. When the Soviet military finally decided the MAZ-537 needed a successor, they turned to the Kurgan Wheel Tractor Plant, and the result was the KZK T-7428 Rusik. Entering service in 1990, the Rusik was powered by a YAMZV 12 turbocharged diesel producing 650 horsepower. This 8x8 beast hauled 70 tons across any terrain from -50 to +50 degrees Celsius. The cab accommodated the driver plus 5 additional crew members with rear seats that could convert into sleeping bunks for long-distance operations. The engine was repositioned behind the cab, improving weight distribution and reducing noise. Every axle featured independent suspension with torsion bars and hydraulic shock absorbers, plus self-locking differentials. The Rusich could reach 65 kilometers per hour and had a remarkable range of 1,500 kilometers. It was used primarily to transport T-72 and T-80 main battle tanks, heavy artillery systems, and even aircraft. Production continued until 2011, when the manufacturer went bankrupt. Number 8. The MAZ-543 Hurricane. Now we are entering legendary territory. The MAZ-543 first appeared on November 7, 1965, rolling through Red Square, carrying the Scud missile. This 8x8 monster was the standard mobile launcher for the most infamous tactical ballistic missile of the Cold War. The design was revolutionary. Instead of a conventional single cab, the 543 featured a split cabin arrangement with 2 separate crew compartments on either side and the missile mounted between them. This lowered the vehicle height dramatically for concealment. Under the floor sat a 38.9-liter V12 diesel derived from a tank power plant producing 525 horsepower. Beyond the Scud, the 543 carried the BM-30 Smerch launcher and S-300 air defense system. During the 1991 Gulf War, coalition pilots claimed around 100 Scud launcher kills. Post-war inspections found not a single confirmed destruction. The MAZ-543's mobility had made the Scud practically unhuntable. Number 7. The MAZ-547. Take the already massive 543 and add 2 more axles, and you get the MAZ-547, a 12-wheeled behemoth built for one purpose, carrying the SS-20 Sabre intermediate-range nuclear missile. Each missile carried 3 independently targetable nuclear warheads with a range of 5,000 kilometers, terrifying Western Europe throughout the 70s and 80s. This 6-axle, 12x12 vehicle stretched nearly 17 meters and weighed over 30 tons empty. The entire system was designed as an integrated mobile unit. Within minutes of stopping, the crew could erect the missile and fire, then relocate before enemy forces could pinpoint the launch site. This shell game strategy drove Western military planners crazy. The SS-20 was so destabilizing that it became the central issue in the Intermediate-Range Nuclear Forces Treaty I signed in 1987. Under that treaty, every SS-20 missile and every MAZ-547 carrier was destroyed, a literal casualty of peace. Number 6. The MAZ-7910. The arms race demanded ever larger missiles and ever larger trucks to carry them. The MAZ-7910, another 8x8 heavyweight from the Minsk automobile plant, became the backbone of multiple Soviet strategic weapon systems during the 1980s. Designed for next-generation systems too heavy for the standard 543, it featured a widened and strengthened frame, uprated suspension, and roughly 700 horsepower from its V12 diesel. About 32 tons empty with 28 tons of payload capacity across rough terrain. Its most famous role was carrying the S-300 air defense system, one of the most capable anti-aircraft missile systems ever built. With more than 350 S-300 systems deployed in Russia and exports to 19 countries, the 7910 became one of the most widely fielded heavy missile carriers in history. The vehicle featured dual fiberglass cabins, a central tire inflation system, and could operate in any climatic conditions. Number 5. The MAZ-7917, the Topol. Just the name sent shivers through Western intelligence agencies. The 7-axle MAZ-7917 carried this intercontinental ballistic missile, a solid fuel weapon capable of striking targets anywhere on Earth with a nuclear warhead. Developed starting in 1982, the vehicle stretched nearly 19 meters long and weighed 32.5 tons empty. The V12 multi-fuel engine produced between 710 and 720 horsepower. With 14 wheels in a 14x14 configuration, it carried the entire towpole system across rough terrain at 18 to 32 kilometers per hour. Fuel consumption was staggering, up to 365 liters per 100 kilometers. 402 were built through 1992. The road-mobile towpole made Soviet nuclear forces dramatically more survivable because tracking and destroying these trucks as they dispersed across the vast road network was nearly impossible. Number 4. The MZKT-79-221. If the MAZ-79-17 carried the original topple, the MZKT-79-221 carries its bigger, meaner successor, the Topple M. Developed in the late 90s with serial production starting in 2000, this 8-axle monster represents the pinnacle of wheeled missile carrier technology. It features a 16x16 all-wheel drive configuration, meaning all 16 wheels are driven and most of them steer. Powered by the AMZ V12 diesel, producing 800 horsepower, stretching over 22 meters, it carries a nuclear warhead capable of hitting any target on Earth within 30 minutes. The missile weighs over 47 tons, yet this chassis transports and erects it for launch in minutes. What makes this vehicle truly remarkable is that it is manufactured in Belarus while carrying a Russian missile, creating a strange strategic dependency that has complicated diplomacy ever since. Number 3. The MAZ-7906. We are now entering the realm of vehicles so extreme they seem like science fiction. The MAZ-7906, built in 1984, was a 16x16 prototype with 8 axles and 16 driven wheels. Designed to carry the road-mobile version of the RT-23 Molodets ICBM, carrying 10 independently targetable nuclear warheads. 68 tons empty, 220 tons loaded. Every single wheel was steerable. Developed under the top-secret Salina II program, only a single prototype was ever built. Engineers needed to create a vehicle that could carry an enormous missile across the vast Soviet wilderness, staying hidden from American spy satellites while remaining ready to launch at a moment's notice. While the 7906 proved the concept was viable, engineers believed they could do even better, which led directly to the next 2 entries on our list. Number 2. The MAZ-7904. In 1983, the Minsk automobile plant produced what might be the most absurdly massive wheeled vehicle ever designed for military use. The MAZ-7904 was a 12-wheeled colossus that weighed 140 tons empty and was designed to carry payloads of up to 220 tons. Fully loaded, this machine weighed 360 tons, more than twice the weight of the heaviest tank ever built. Over 32 meters long, nearly 7 meters high, and 5.5 meters wide. It was powered by a 42.4-liter turbocharged V12 marine diesel, producing 1,500 horsepower. The tires stood nearly 3 meters tall, and because Soviet industry could not produce them, they were secretly imported from Japan under the cover story that they were needed for mining dump trucks. Testing only occurred at night to avoid spy satellites. After 4,100 kilometers of testing in Kazakhstan at a maximum speed of just 27 kilometers per hour, a fatal flaw emerged. Each wheel bore 30 tons of pressure, destroying roads beneath it. The sole prototype rusted at the Baikonur Cosmodrome and was scrapped in 2010. Number 1. The MAZ-7907, and here it is. The absolute king of Soviet military trucks. The MAZ-7907, completed in March 1985, was a 24-wheeled, 12-axle Leviathan with a 24x24 all-wheel drive configuration, making it the only vehicle in history where every single one of 24 wheels was independently powered. The vehicle stretched approximately 28 to 30 meters long, stood 4.5 meters tall, and weighed 65 tons empty with a payload capacity of 150 tons. Instead of a conventional diesel engine, the 7907 was powered by a gas turbine, essentially a helicopter engine, producing 1,250 horsepower. That turbine drove a generator, which fed electricity to 24 individual electric motors, one mounted inside each wheel hub. This made it one of the earliest and largest hybrid electric vehicles ever built. 16 of the 24 wheels could steer, allowing the vehicle to crab sideways, turn its front wheels one direction and rear wheels the opposite, or even move diagonally. Only 2 prototypes were built for the top-secret Selena II ICBM program. After the Cold War ended, one prototype famously transported an 88-ton ship 250 kilometers in 1996 at about 10 to 20 kilometers per hour. It broke down afterward and had to be towed. Since then, the surviving MAZ-7907 has sat at the factory, a rusting monument to an era when the Soviets believed they could build their way to nuclear supremacy one wheel at a time. And there you have it, 20 Soviet military trucks ranging from rugged workhorses to nuclear-armed engineering nightmares. Which one blew your mind? The 24-wheeled MAZ-7907 with its helicopter engine, or the 7904 with secretly smuggled Japanese tires? Let us know in the comments. Hit like, subscribe, and tap that notification bell so you do not miss our next deep dive into machines the world was never supposed to see. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.